Hey guys, Rick Howard here, and today we're going to talk about the federal workforce, people that have federal jobs, and why now is probably a great time for you to start your own LLC, small business. Obviously, this can apply to anyone that's looking to start a business, get into government contracting. But after a recent episode that I did with Armand Curate on just the state of the federal workforce, I got a ton of comments and people watching that video. I wanted to just put something out there, give you my story, others that I know where we've left federal service and started our own business. Now, I was in the military and started my own business after I retired. Plenty of people in GovClose are federal employees. Some of them have left federal employment to start their own jobs. So we're just going to talk about some of the reasons that we're going to do this and why it actually makes sense for you, if for no other reason, just as a fail-safe, right? So a lot of instability out there right now in the federal workforce. A lot of people wondering if they're going to have a job. I just talked to, oh, there goes my alarm again. Hey, Alexa, off. She runs my life, guys. What can I say? And by the way, guys, if you can see, I'm just going to drop a test in the comments there just to make sure that the comments are working and make sure everything's going live here at the same time. I think we're good. So why start an LLC? You know, you're nervous about your business. The reason that I would advise everybody to do this, and by the way, whether you're going to lose your job or not, you know, when I'm consulting with people, when I'm talking with people, whether they're transitioning out of the military, federal job, something else, having an LLC established and having the ability to sell your expertise, for instance, as a consultant, although there's lots of different businesses that you can start, that is something that comes in very handy when you need, you know, extra money for the tuition payment, or, you know, just need to bring in a little extra cash each month for your household. By the way, on the LLC, there's lots of things, there's lots of reasons why you're going to want to do this, and we'll go over them. Tax write-offs is another big one. But really, I like having the ability to be able to generate income when I need it. So depending on what your financial situation is right now, steady job, nervous about getting laid off by the government or something else, we're going to walk through all of the reasons that you may want to start that business for yourself now. And I always recommend get that going now while you have a job and you can start generating income before you have to leave it. You may realize that you don't want to run a business and you just want to go to work for someone. And that's great. There's lots of great reasons just to go work for another business. Now, obviously, we focus on government contracting with the GovClose website, and there is a very clear track for anyone with federal experience to go in that direction. But I'm not limiting it to that. So there's lots of businesses out there. We could talk a little bit and we can get into questions about, hey, what makes a good business? How do you test those ideas out? Because if there's any takeaway for everyone that I'd like you to have, it's that you don't have a business if no one will buy what you're selling. So you want to avoid spending a year building something up before you test if somebody will actually buy it or not. So we can get right into how you can test if someone will buy your service, your solution. But there are a lot of different ways to test your idea before you spend time and money trying to build something. So that's going to be one of the foot stompers here is test what you want to sell, make sure somebody will buy it. Now, we use the title here about 5 reasons federal workers should be looking at this now. And main thing right now is instability, right? You have your federal job because it was a stable job. A lot of people take a little bit less money to get those federal jobs. And but one of the attractive qualities of them is A, they're typically very stable, and B, they could turn into a retirement check or a pension later on. They come with certain benefits. Now things are a little unstable, so you want to have that backup plan, right? So I would be looking at either starting a business while I still have my job or going out and starting to investigate the employment space. But we're going to talk about the first part of that today. Now, the other thing about starting your own business, this is where you can create that I guess you could say your entrepreneurship, aside from kind of tickling that creative business bug that you might have, is really a way to create that financial independence for you and your family. And again, even when I've had jobs, JOBs, working for other companies as a W-2 since my federal service or since my military service, I always had an LLC in the side so I could consult and generate income. And often I would generate more money as a consultant with a side gig than my main source of income. And that can be very valuable for you. Now, let's get into, we all know, I don't want to stay on the instability in the federal market piece here, but the reason number two, and this is one of the biggest things, is let's start that business before you leave your job, right? So what is that going to entail? Well, most people are going to start an LLC. And to start an LLC, there's a few ways you can do it. I used LegalZoom when I started my LLC. You don't have to, but it just makes the whole process a lot easier. So there's a lot of requirements there, but it's actually relatively simple. Probably costs, somewhere between $100 and $300. I prefer LegalZoom. There's another one. It's like Business Panda or something. You guys can leave it in the comments. It's I can't remember exactly the name of it, but I have used some of the other services out there to start a business, and I found them a little bit clunky and harder to work through. So I have gone back to LegalZoom, and no, I don't get any affiliate money from them, but that's just how I did it. The LLC. Hey man, how's it going? I'm on Preet. Amon's in our program. Now, as far as next steps and why you want to create that LLC to begin with, is it's going to protect you and your family. And what do I mean by that? And by the way, there's a lot of, I'm not a lawyer, there's lots of reasons for having an LLC, but one of them is when you start an LLC and you start a business bank account associated with your business. That's another recommendation. You want to keep your business income separate from your family income. So that might be a little bit different if you're a W-2 employee, but we want to have those things separate. So A, when it comes time for tax season, we can see where all the money came in from your business. But B, if anyone actually sues you or any of that, we want to make sure that your business assets are separate from your family assets. And you want that to be very clear. And of course, we're also going to be looking at insurance and whatnot as well. Hey, and Brett's here as well. Hey guys, how's it going today? So starting a business, get it started while you still have your job if you're a federal employee. And then this goes for everyone though. If you're thinking about starting a business, if you're not a federal employee and you have a job, this is something that you can do and probably should do while you have your current job. Now, are there any ethical considerations that you have to consider if you're a federal employee or legal ones and you have a side business? Well, there may be. If you're in the military, for instance, if you're active duty military, you have to get permission to have another income stream. So just make sure that you are checking all of the legal boxes. And you may have further restrictions as a federal employee on, maybe working in certain areas. Again, you're going to have to check that with your organization. How can you leverage your federal experience with this business? Now, we run GovClose, and this is where we train people the art of government contracting, and then we show them how to turn that into a business, consulting business, how to go out and get a job as a sales executive. And as a federal employee, if you're watching this, you already have experience in a federal agency. This is something I talked to Amanda about on my last interview we did on Friday. You have, even if you don't know anything about government contracting, you have knowledge about the federal agency that you came from. And that is something that companies will pay for, because companies guaranteed are selling to the federal agency that you came from. Now, most people that have federal jobs are probably in the bigger agencies like the DOD, DOJ, Department of Energy, etc. But companies are selling a variety of things to all of these agencies, and despite all of the cuts and everything else we're hearing about, this is going to continue. Okay, and it is big money. It is a huge industry, it is also very difficult to sell to the government. So having that expertise combined with your federal background can be a very lucrative business path for you. Oh, thanks, Brett. I appreciate that. So Brett's just saying, thanks for the information. I think it's honestly anybody that's in a position where they're nervous about their jobs. And this is why I'm putting it out there, because I got so many questions from my episode with Armand that I just wanted to put out there. Hey, what do I have to be thinking about for starting this business? So again, first, start the business while you still have your job, meaning just the legal things, the LLC, potentially the business bank account, and start thinking about what do you want this business to be? Okay. Now I mentioned you can use your federal experience, combine that with some government contracting to go that route. But what that route would be a consulting business. So if you want to sell your expertise, and by the way, this is probably the easiest type of business to start. It doesn't have to be government contracting. You might be a program manager. You might have expertise in accounting or engineering, or you name it, right? Cybersecurity. You can sell your expertise easily because you are the product, right? Now, there's other types of businesses. You could start a house painting company. You could start a car wash, right? But a lot of businesses will require investment and a lot to get started. A consulting business, on the other hand, you can get started by yourself and generate more income if you do it correctly than you're making for the government. And actually, it's not going to be too hard to do that. You could probably 3x what you're doing for the government by yourself, maybe with a VA that's that you're paying through Upwork or something. That's what I certainly did when I got started, and was able to scale that up very quickly. And you could do the same thing. So you want to think about the expertise that you want to sell. Now, the key there is that you may have an expertise, like for instance, I love to play guitar. I don't have my guitars on the wall. I love playing guitar. I'm not going to make $500,000 a year teaching guitar lessons, right? I'm just not. I mean, I could get lucky, I guess, if you had like the right YouTube channel. But what you're looking at is what will people pay for, right? And companies, we want to sell to companies, and that's my recommendation. You're selling to a company. One of the, I guess, easiest things to sell that a company will pay the most for is if you can help them make more money, because a business is about making income. So some of the things that you could think about is how can you make a company more money? How can you save a company more time? And I would say a third is safety. So if you have a skill set around safety, then you could potentially offer a consulting package around safety. Now, again, if you're coming from the federal government, you're used to dealing with things like federal regulations, right? And safety, by the way, often is tied to those type of regulations. So now I'm just kind of spitballing here, but I want to give you some ideas about what type of consulting business you could start coming from the government, right? So again, with safety, anything tied to like OSHA regulations, stuff like that, if a company has to do it because of the industry, if a company has to follow safety regulations, if a company has to do X, Y, and Z because they are mandated, because it's the law, that's another great angle to take as far as selling your services to that company. So what I would do, and I recommend, is put a spreadsheet together, and start writing down what are the things that you want to do, what are things that you like to do, then what are the skill sets that a company might pay for, right? And start dividing these down into, hey, they'll pay for this, but I don't want to. Like, for instance, I could very easily, and I have, sell proposal writing for government contracts, but I do not like to write proposals. So I'm not going to sell that, right? So, but you want to find the middle ground. So when people hire me as a consultant, typically it is to develop strategy for a business that's selling to the government. And I used to sell business development services. There's a lot of different areas and expertise that you could. Cybersecurity, same thing. Again, I keep bringing up government contracting because there's a lot of money being spent by the federal government, and it is complex. So when you start adding complexity to the funding, well, now we start honing in on a service that you can sell competently to another business. And you can use your background, your federal background, to potentially bring on some of those initial clients. Okay, so we talked about why you might want to start your business coming from federal, building an income stream before you leave, how important that is. And just to touch on that a little bit more, I like to know, and because I've done this, I want to know that I can make as much or more money with my business before I quit my job. Now, everyone doesn't have that luxury, but if you have a job and you're nervous, it's time to start testing that out, right? And so selling consulting work, it's a pretty easy way to kind of get started, start testing the waters, reaching out to companies, seeing if they're interested in your service. We talked about how you could leverage your federal expertise, and certainly leveraging your expertise in the government contracting realm. That would be my recommendation. But again, there's thousands of different things that you could use your personal expertise for. Another thing you could do when you're making that list of, hey, what kind of business am I going to run? Where do my skills fit? Think about the training that you've received in the government. Like, list it all out. Look at your performance reports, training, education, background, jobs that you've had. These are all things that you want to list out. And then, there's a very specific way you can start testing those. And we may get into that today if we have time. By the way, guys, feel free to ask questions during this session here while we're live today. Now, what about small business benefits? We touched a little bit about LLCs, right? Now, there's a lot of different types of businesses. I am not a legal expert. I can tell you, though, that a LLC is great in the beginning when you're just kind of testing things out. You're a consultant. You're maybe starting a services business of some sort. When you get to a certain point, you may want to start looking at an S corp. So, and really, as I understand it, one of the big differences is, as an S corp, you pay yourself as a employee, and you're taxed at one rate, which is higher, right? And then your business rate can remain lower, so you can keep money in the business and save a little bit on taxes. And you're going to always want to talk to your accountant about which model is going to work best for you, LLC versus S corp. Typically, an LLC is fine in the beginning. It was for me, and then eventually I needed to move to S corp, just as to be financially responsible, for my family. Now, there's a bunch of different small business set-asides still that the government has if you're looking at selling to the government. Service disabled, veteran-owned small business. 8A is another one. Those are probably the two big ones. And by the way, I've got so much content on this on YouTube. This is not going to be a government contracting session here. If you want to learn more about any of the set-asides or how to sell to the government, just go to @GovClose, go to our YouTube channel. There, you could learn a lot, or at least get a really great overview of the government contracting process, and decide if you think it's right for you. But in the beginning, it takes a long time to sell to the government, so that's not the business you want to. If you're thinking about having to pivot from your job in the next 6 months, you don't want to try selling to the government. Selling to the government is the long game. If you want to learn how to sell to the government and potentially use that expertise in your business, go to govclose.com. We'll teach you how to do that there. But in the meantime, and by the way, I'm going to drop in our website right here so you guys have it. There's a variety of small business benefits out there. Just know that if you're selling to the government, service disabled, veteran-owned small business, if you have one of those, if you're service disabled, selling to the VA is going to almost always be your best bet. They have special language that looks at SDVOSB businesses. And then 8A, which is disadvantaged businesses, there's some language that allows the government to sole source contract with those type of businesses above and beyond. It's hard to give a sole source contract to a business if you're the federal government. You have to justify it. That's a process. 8A alleviates some of that. It's not, contracts aren't going to start falling out of the sky for you, but you may look into that. So just know there are some small business benefits on the government contracting side still, even in the midst of all of this. Freedom and flexibility. Now, I'll put some more content out there as far as this is concerned, but working if you start a consulting business, which is what I teach in our program, I feel like this is the most flexible way of starting a company that you can be involved with. You're the product in the beginning, you're providing the service or the product. So, the margins, meaning the profit that you're going to be able to make when you're selling these types of services is very high. And since you are the initial employee, you don't have to hire a bunch of people in the beginning, and you can work from everywhere, but you can work from anywhere. I mean, if you have an internet connection and a laptop, and I was in Puerto Rico 2 weeks ago, again, kind of checking that out for tax purposes, but also on a family trip, no problem working from there, right? Internet connection, great. We have, and I'll put out another video. Ross is one of our graduates from GovClose. He lives in Germany and is just staring out at the mountains in Garmisch and has no problem working as a consultant in this space. And we have people that are all over the world, most of them probably in the United States as we're selling to the US government, but consulting typically is going to give you enormous flexibility. Now let's see here. Let's see, we've got a couple questions here. I'm a contractor trying to partner with my university on an STTR. Any advice? So flipping back to government contracting, STTR is a type of contract. SBIR is Small Business Innovative Research. Essentially, these contracts are designed to attract companies that don't normally sell to the government. Typically, these are tech companies, but not always. They're looking for innovative solutions, and a lot of companies use these type of contracts as funding. Instead of going after things like angel investing and taking money from investors where they're taking a piece of your company, the government will fund a technology development within a company that could solve a problem. And these come out in topics on SBIR.gov. By the way, I've heard some rumblings that SBIR, STTR may be paused. I haven't been able to confirm that anywhere. So again, that's just kind of what I'm hearing through the grapevine. But STTR, the difference between SBIR and STTR is STTR, we're partnering with a nonprofit like a university. So Storyteller here is asking for advice on how to partner with the STTR. And what I would tell you is same thing that I would tell somebody that was looking to form a teaming agreement for subcontracting with the government. And that is, we want to have the opportunity, we want to do the work for them. All right. And that is going to, that's going to move the needle for you. So when I reach out to a university or anyone, I'm not reaching out cold like, hey, do you want to partner on, some upcoming efforts for an SBIR, STTR? That's not my approach. What I would do is I would go find that STTR topic, and a topic for a contract like this might be the government is working on technologies for vertical takeoff aircraft, or the government's looking for innovative solutions for, I don't know, a wearable heart monitoring system. These are the type of things you want to find that topic, know when it's due, know when the proposal's due, investigate like writing the proposal. And then I would bring that to a couple of universities and say, hey, look, there is a STTR opportunity coming out. I have this part of, maybe if it was the heart monitoring thing, maybe you build the equipment, but you need researchers to, analyze the data or write an algorithm or something. I need the university to do this. And you could tell them, hey, look, I will write the entire proposal myself. I'll handle the submission process. You can also talk to the technical point of contact, potentially Storyteller, and now you're in communication with the government. So now you approach the university, and what you're saying is, hey, look, I am speaking with the government office in charge of this upcoming STTR. And by the way, I will write the whole thing for you. And that's going to make it very compelling for the university to partner with you. So hopefully that answers your question. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to drop them in there. We're talking today about why you might want to start a business. Coming from federal, this of course will apply to anybody. So if anybody wants to start a consulting business or get into government contracting, or you're on the federal side, which was I think the way we titled this, and you're nervous about your job, then starting an LLC now and starting to put the things in place for you to generate income. And I like to generate multiple streams of income that are coming in each month. Now's the time. Let's see here. We get another question. Okay, so storyteller is handled. Brett. Rick, can you give your thoughts about consultant services for firms already on contract? For example, I was a U.S. Air Force civil engineering officer, and too many small contractors left opportunity on the table because they didn't know how to optimize or upsell our office in the field. The big primes excel in this area. Oh, you're right about that. And I think this type of work would be a great niche for consultants targeting a small business. But by the way, guys, if you are just seeing me for the first time, Rick Howard, I'm a former government contracting acquisitions officer. I was a program manager in an acquisitions branch here at Hanscom, foreign military sales, rapid tech development, and then started a consulting business when I retired in 2019, which evolved into GovClose, which is our training platform for training sales executives, training people on government contracting, and then how to turn that into a consulting business or get a job. We also train sales teams for companies that are selling to the government. So what Brett's talking about here is if you are a company that is on contract with the government, and small businesses are, you're right, Brett, guilty of this in a big way. The easiest way, and I hate to even use the word easy in government contracting in the same sentence, but one of the easiest ways to sell to the government, I think the easiest and fastest way, is if you are already on contract with a federal agency, you want to make sure that you are staying in constant communication with them. And I don't mean like harassing, but at least monthly. Hey, if you're providing a software tool, hey, program manager, because you'll have a contact there. How is that tool performing? You have services. Hey, how are my guys doing? How are my gals doing? Are they performing up to speed? And often they'll say, hey, we're having this problem. Well, then you go in and you fix the problem. But this type of constant interaction allows you to, first of all, get to know them, because there's a person on the other side of this government contracting wall. And it also lets them know that you are somebody that they can call if there's any problems, and you're going to come in and fix whatever the problem is. And this is a very good thing because it is going to make you one of their go-to people. It also gives you the opportunity to say, hey, we fixed a software thing. Did you know we have these other tools? Oh, no, we didn't know that. And, half the time it's probably like, yeah, we don't need anything right now. But then you get a call. It's like, hey, remember that tool? Like, could we actually see that? Yeah, let me bring that in. So what Brett's talking about is upselling your existing federal clients. Very important. Certainly, one of my clients turned into someone I worked for when I was selling software to mainly the Air Force and Department of Energy. And all I did was upsell our existing clients for the most part. That is one of the primary ways you're going to increase federal sales. So if you are in that space, that's something you can do. By the way, you could also offer that as a service. If you were starting a consulting business, right? You're coming out of, say, you pick the agency and say, now you're approaching companies. Hey, I'll help you with your relationships with that organization, or I'll help you find opportunities with that organization, or I'll help you write sources. I mean, again, I could list off 50 different things that you could sell to a company to help them sell to the organization that you're coming from. I would just say, guys, make sure that you don't have any restrictions preventing you from doing something like that. Most people will not, but some will, right? I certainly had restrictions for a year or two when I first retired that would prevent me from engaging on certain efforts, certain programs that I would have worked on. So just understand that. Yeah, feel free if you guys have any questions, drop them in there. Does everybody watching know what an SBIR or STTR contract is? I know we were talking about it when what was it? Storyteller had the question. If you do have questions on any of the acronyms, if you don't understand something that I've said, throw that in with the comments. This is also how we decide which videos we're going to put out on YouTube. If you haven't followed our YouTube channel, check it out at govclose.com. Storyteller, I know you know what an STTR is. You've written about 12. Storyteller, have you won any? Hoping the answer is yes. Because if you have, well, you also have the ability to write proposals that win STTR, SBIR contracts. So this is what I'm looking at, by the way, guys, in the comments here. So I know I'm on a few different platforms. Okay, and no, not yet. Okay. I think you're saying you're a PhD and probably haven't won any of those yet. By the way, there is a art form to winning some of these contracts. Anyone that consumes our content realizes that one of my core philosophies when selling to the government is we find the opportunities far ahead of the solicitation, the official RFP, request for proposal, request for quote. You want to find out about it as far ahead of that solicitation as possible if you really want to have a shot at winning it. Now, if you were on a federal sales team that, like for a company that's been doing this, and you brought them just, hey, this RFP just dropped, and that's the first time you wanted to engage on it, you'd probably get laughed at. Because what you'd be asking the company to do is commit resources to, because there's writing a proposal, as you probably know, storyteller, takes a lot of work. You're going to commit that kind of time and resource to an opportunity that, the office doesn't even know you. This is the first time they're going to see or hear from you is when that proposal comes in. So that's not typically where we want to start. What we want to do is, for 99% of the stuff, we want to start way, way, way before that. So for the STTRs, SBIRs, one of the things I like to do going into it, I want to talk to people in the government that could potentially use this solution. I'm looking for typically letters of reference or support from them, even just say, hey, this is great. I would like to use this in my area. Talking to the technical point of contact, which you may or may not have done. Storytellers hitting me up here. What else do you have to say? Let's see here. No, not partnered with a large, okay, that's why I'm trying for STTR. And finish my PhD. I'm including that in my proposal. Depending on what you're writing it for, you may or may not want to, I don't know if that you're working on your PhD is going to move the needle or not. It really just depends on what type of opportunity you're engaging on. I will say this, though, for anyone that has tried to win SBIRs and has failed, Storyteller is definitely going on he's got the right idea here, because if you partner, first of all, you're more likely to win an STTR than you are an SBIR, at least from the anecdotal evidence that I have been provided from different agencies I talk to, because typically less people are going to submit STTRs because they're more work. And so you have less people engaging on them, less competition. They're more work because you're partnering with a university. So more work, a little of that work up front to develop that partnership with the university could reduce competition on something like an STTR versus a SBIR. So again, hopefully that answers some of your questions there on SBIR versus STTR. By the way, I don't know that I would probably pause on this idea now, considering where we are with Doge. But what I was going to say is that some people, their business centers around SBIR and STTR. I do not advocate for an SBIR proposal farm business, meaning there are some companies that just go out and try to win SBIR, and that's their business model. I don't like that at all. That's not what it's designed for. But I do love the SBIR and STTR program for companies that are especially tech development companies. You have an innovative idea or solution, and you're dipping your fingers into government contracting for the first time. I've worked with plenty of companies on this type of thing, augmented reality and others, and augmented reality training. It's a great way to start winning some of those initial contracts and get your feet into it. Now, there may be some disruption in SBIR, STTR now. You just got to keep your ears open as to what the government is actually doing. Like I said, I've heard some rumblings, but I haven't confirmed any of that yet. Last time I went onto the SBIR website, Storyteller, it was all of the topics were still there and live, and there were due dates coming up, and we could certainly turn this into a SBIR talk if you wanted to. That is a skill set that consultants will sell services for, right? So we have consultants that have left our program, or actually Deb, for instance, still in our program. She graduated, but she's a SBR, STTR proposal writer, which actually, storyteller, you may want to meet Deb and see, if she can help you out on your next proposal, because she's really good at it and has a lot of experience there. And just to say that you can have experience in a lot of these different areas and then sell them as consulting services and start a business. Again, starting that business and having enough income coming in to rival, if not double, triple what you're bringing in with a federal job or just your regular W-2, it's not that difficult to do that. And by the way, much, much faster to go the consulting route than it is to, meaning you're selling to other businesses. It's much easier to start a business like that than to start selling to the US government, which takes time. And as you saw from Storyteller, what'd you say you wrote? You've written about 12 of those SBIRs and you didn't win any. So, I mean, you could see, these contracts don't just come falling out of the sky. It takes a lot of work to write a proposal, and then you actually have to win them. And then the real work starts, right? Then you actually have to develop the solution for the government. So let's see here. We've taken, just to walk through some of the things we talked about here, about starting your own business as a federal employee. We talked about the why, we have the uncertainty, how I recommend people start an LLC, whether they have a job or not, whether they're a federal employee or not, just to have a way to, help you with taxes, right? Because you can write things off for your LLC, and having a way to generate income on the side is extremely valuable. I don't know about you guys, but I have kids and I have tuition to pay and medical bills that aren't covered with their insurance. I'm retired military, so we have the insurance that comes with that, and it does not cover everything, right? So in fact, my son was taking shots. I had to spend $3,000 out of my pocket every month for his shot until we could find a way to take that. Now, how do you pay for that? Luckily, I had my own business. And so, I could bring on another client and pay for the things that I needed to pay for. You can do that with your job, your federal job. So there's a lot of reasons to start that LLC, but I think that the number one is just, I don't want to even say it's the number one, peace of mind, the ability to generate income. And then if you're making more with your LLC that you've started, your consulting business, than you are with your federal job, and you happen to lose your federal job, well, it's not a big deal. You're already making more. You can just now ramp up. You can really scale up that company and make even more. But there is a little ramp up time. So again, huge foot stomper is get the LLC paperwork done while you still have the job. Start reaching out and experimenting with the different services you could potentially sell. Consulting is a business that you can start for very little income. Not very little income, but very little money down. You don't have to spend $200,000 to start a consulting business. You don't have to get a $1 million SBA loan and build a car washing garage or anything. Whether it's consulting, you're the product, and you can test it. The way you test it, you can send an email. You can call a company, see if they're interested in your services. We teach all that in GovClose. You can go to govclose.com if you're interested. We walk people through the whole process. We teach them government contracting and how to turn that into a consulting business. But yeah, that is the reason. We want to be able to generate revenue now. Federal job, things are fluctuating. But if you have that income stream coming in on the side, you can have that peace of mind. You know it's there. And then it's always going to come in handy. Tax write-offs, you need a little extra income to pay for something. And God forbid you lose your job. Now at least you have something you can get into. And by the way, I didn't even talk about this, but that consulting angle, starting that business, that is also a way of finding another job. Because when you're consulting with companies, and just kind of think about this, think about the difference between applying for a job, right? Hey, I'm applying for a job. You get a bunch of people applying for it, versus me just reaching out directly to a CEO and saying, hey, look, so for me, that message is going to be like, hey, I help companies like yours sell to federal agencies. If it's a augmented reality company or something, hey, I help companies like yours sell augmented reality solutions to the U.S. Air Force. Now, I'm dealing with either the owner, the CEO, or leadership of the business. And when I'm providing services and I'm getting results, you're going to be seen at much differently than a regular employee. You're going to be seen as a peer. And then in addition to the consulting revenue you bring in, now we're talking about leadership opportunities in companies. We're talking about equity deals. We are talking about, I had a Wall Street investor offer me the CEO position in one of his companies. You'll get full-time jobs that wouldn't have been offered to you before with higher incomes. There's just so much that could potentially come your way from something like this. That's why I'm so bullish on it. And I love putting the word out there. And especially, again, like in these times and with like the barrage of questions I got after my interview with Armand, which you can see on our YouTube channel. I just wanted to put that out there for everybody as an option. You don't have to take advantage of it if you don't want to, but it is something that could save you a lot of peace of mind and potentially change your entire professional career. So, and then, reason number 3, we talked about how you can leverage your federal experience in a consulting business, right? And that's specific to the government contracting piece. So you don't have to have federal experience to start a consulting business or to work in government contracting, but if you do, that's just extra credibility. Like you can walk right in and say, hey, look, I understand this agency, and you're going to understand it better than the company that you're talking to. I can almost guarantee it. All right, so I have a few more comments here. Okay, so let me go through storytellers. STEM education. One was a National Science Foundation. I love the NSF CIBR portal, I guess you could call it, where if I'm remembering it correct, it's where they instead of having to write a proposal, you could write a couple of paragraphs. I think it's 500 words or less. Tell me if I'm wrong, storyteller. And then they'll come back to you and tell you if they're interested in the topic or idea. And then you would, after that, write a proposal. That I love because it's a big time saver. Let's see here. Totally wondering about that as well. How can I write for others and leverage my experience? Well, the first thing I would tell you is you want to make sure that, so you know how to write these, but you also want to generate some results here. So a couple things that you could do. One is I would get with people that have won these SBIR and STTR contracts, right? You've been through the proposal writing process a few times. My guess is that you just have to make a few tweaks to what you've done to your approach to start winning those contracts. You could go to GovClose.com, by the way. We have an entire training platform for this, so that the people that come through GovClose, they I can show you here too, but it's weekly coaching combined with the on-demand training. And then once you get through the first part of it, then we bring you over into what we call the war room. And now it's all right. Now we need to start getting clients. We need to start selling to the government. We have a huge community of people that have skills and expertise in a lot of different places. So including CIBR proposal writing, which we discussed. Let's see here. I'll see if I can share my screen with you guys. I know this. We've tried this a few times. You gotta be kidding me. Is this gonna work? Oh, it is gonna work. Hey, lucky me. Lucky, I don't know, lucky you guys or not, right? So if you go to govclose.com, you click on become an expert. Then you have to kind of get through the watch now video here where we give you the overview. But once you're in the program, we go through all of the courses here. So we go through, I certify everyone that goes through, we go through the basics of, hey, where are we going to start with government contracting? Because just coming from the federal government doesn't mean you know anything about government contracting. In fact, I was in government contracting as an acquisitions officer, and I'm still learning things every day. So we start with the basics. This is what government contracting is. These are the websites we need to be familiar with. We talk about niche development, how you can help companies find profitable niches in government contracting. And we can see an amazing amount of information when we are looking at government contract spending, right? So you've probably heard a lot about the DOGE and how much money they think they're spending, and they were effing it, sorry for kind of swearing, but they were messing it up in the beginning because they were like, hey, we just canceled this $2 billion contract. And so we saved $2 billion. But what they were talking about is there was a contract with a ceiling of billions of dollars, but a very little amount of obligated funds on there. So, so there's some complexity in government contracting, but we can see all the federal data. So what we're doing is we're going in and saying, hey, you can look in and say, hey, accounting services, the government spends $1 billion a year on accounting service. I'm making these numbers up. I'm just giving you an example. $1 billion a year on accounting services. 400 million of that goes to small businesses. You could look at how many proposals are coming in per solicitation. Hey, 16 proposals are coming in on, tax preparation services. But then if you look at, when I say niche development, but look at this, bookkeeping services, only 2 proposals on average are coming in per solicitation. So what does that tell me? Well, it tells me there's an opportunity for bookkeeping services being provided by accountants. So we teach them how to go through that and develop those niches. It's actually a good way too. If you can see that the government's spending on it, companies are probably spending on it too. So this is a good drill for anyone to do. But so when you're in here, then we teach them the federal sales roadmap. And that is a very detailed sales plan that we build off of spending. So when you're working with a company or if you're selling yourself, we want to know the exact steps that you're going to take selling to the government. You do not want to be guessing. You don't want to be just writing proposals as RFPs are coming down. We want to know the exact steps that we need to take to sell to the government, because the government buys everything differently. Government buys software differently than they buy construction services. Right? You want to know who you're selling to, how they're putting you on contract. So we teach them all that here. We teach them how to build pipeline and sell, right? So, hey, if you're working as a consultant, you can help them build their pipeline. If you're a consultant, you need to have a pipeline. So, and we go through like a lot of the more advanced techniques of government contracting. Here's part of our SBIR STTR model, storyteller. We go into acquisitions forecasts. Other transaction authority guys, if you are planning on developing or selling software or working with a company that does, this is going to be huge for 2025. SecDef put out a recent memo that's going to be pushing other transaction authority a little bit more. And then you can see here, just a ton of advanced strategies and techniques, getting meetings with the government. How do we do direct sales? SIBR, bottoms up approach. There's a lot. So, I'm not going to go through all of that ad nauseum, except to say when we get down here, building the consulting business, this is where we're also getting into some of the things that we talked about today, right? What is consulting? What are some of the basic requirements? LLC, where do I go to start that? I mentioned I used LegalZoom. You don't have to. You can use whatever you want. What about having a website? What about your business account? Everyone should have a business account if they're bringing money in. So LLC, business account. When you start bringing clients in and having that revenue coming in, once you have more than one customer, I highly recommend everyone gets a QuickBooks account or something like it and attaches that to their business account. But insurance. So we cover all of that stuff there. There's a lot that goes into it, but these are all little steps and you can take them incrementally, right? It's one step at a time. LLC, start testing offers, start making some money, get that business account, get the QuickBooks account. So you don't need to buy all these things at once, and you shouldn't. You should make money first. Use that funding that you have coming in to then build up the other things. So we teach people in our program how to build and test their initial offer, how to sell their initial offer, how to sell on Upwork, how to do sales consultations. What about writing a proposal? Since we teach government contracting, I teach people very specifically how much you're going to charge. And in government contracting, it's a lot, because what we're helping companies do is win huge contracts. So if the result of my work is going to eventually result in a company winning a $2 million contract, I can tell you a couple of things. They're not going to pay me by the hour, because I wouldn't even accept that. And 2, they're going to pay me a lot. And we drive results and we get paid while we're working with them. And then for some people, if you're on a W-2, you might get a commission as well as getting paid. Teaching people how to sell. Again, one of the big things I want everybody to take away from this is that selling is business. It doesn't matter how good your idea is. I don't care how good your idea is. I don't care how good your product is or your service. If you can't sell, you don't have a business. There are plenty of great entrepreneur. I don't even want to call them entrepreneurs because I wouldn't even say you're a great entrepreneur if you can't sell. There are plenty of great thinkers out there. There are people that have spent tons of money in some cases, years on these amazing solutions, software, systems, books that they've written, all of this stuff. But it doesn't matter how good it is. If you can't sell it, you do not have a business. You have to know how to sell. It's so important. And I've spent quite a bit of time here sharing my screen in GovClose, just kind of giving you guys a look behind the scene. Except to say that in addition to this, we do weekly coaching. We have a community page where everybody's sharing ideas, the deliverables that we're working on, etc. So now if I can figure out, oh, there we go. I was going to say if I could figure out how to stop sharing that screen. All right, so storyteller, keep going through here. Looking at pivoting to fulfillment on consumables, so helping suppliers get registered as subcontractors. First one's 2010. I'm not sure what that 7% stands for. Yes. Okay. Yep. No, I agree with all that. Yeah. Telling a story, selling your services, selling in general certainly involves telling a story. It also involves not confusing what you're doing with what the person you're selling to actually wants. Let me give you an example of that. So I sell services that help companies win government contracts. I could, whether it's by email, a video, a phone call, I could talk about all the different things, all of the boring ass things that I do to help a company win a contract with the government, right? I could talk about finding sources sought, managing a pipeline, how I engage with the offices, setting up meetings, influencing, creating sole source contract, all of that stuff. I could talk about all of that. But what does the company want? They want a government contract, right? They want to increase the number of contracts that they are winning. So if I confuse my messaging in the story I'm telling and making it about me and all of the great things that I'm going to do, I'm going to lose them, right? But instead, if I approach them and I tell them, look, you're a roofer, or you are a accounting firm, a small woman-owned business accounting firm. Well, hey, we just looked at the federal data. Here it is. The average small woman-owned business that owns an accounting firm and sells to the government makes $3.1 million a year. Now, I just made that number up off the top of my head, specific to accounting, but I can see that. I could go in probably in the next 5 minutes and tell you exactly how much a small woman-owned business that's an accounting firm makes, probably less time than that. I can also tell you that the average small business in general is almost always between 2.7 and 3.1 million. This year, FY24, we know how many businesses, we either know how many businesses sold or how much the total small business spend is. And I think it's the total small business spend. And then we'll get the numbers here in maybe this month. If they're out already, let me know. I'm expecting that to increase again. I know the spend for small businesses increased from 23 to 24 from the federal government. But you know what usually happens, guys, is the number of less than half of 1% of small businesses sell to the U.S. government, which is astounding considering the U.S. government has to buy from small businesses, meaning the SBA sets standards 23% on average. Hey, U.S. government, you're going to buy from small businesses, but yet less than half of 1% of small businesses sell to the government. U.S. government, biggest purchaser of goods and services in the world. Fewer and fewer small businesses year over year are selling to the government. And the government buys just about everything, which means no matter what business you're talking to, there are probably government contracting dollars out there for that business. So as a consultant, you have a target-rich environment, to pull my Top Gun language out, as far as who's going to potentially be your client. It could be any business, right? So if you have some of this information, you have a background, maybe additional things that you have expertise in, it makes it a really nice business to start, especially as a first business consulting. Let's see here. Storyteller, wealth of knowledge here. Hope to learn a lot with you and making some money together. Yeah, no, I mean, same. I think there's something here for a lot of people. And, depending on what walk of life you're coming from, put it in your hip pocket, right? If you're concerned at all about where we are this year and you have a job and you don't know how long you're going to have it for, or you have any doubts, start your LLC. If you've always wanted to start a business, start a business. Start testing some things out. Don't spend $1 million on an idea before you've figured out or not whether you can sell it, right? And also keep in mind, there are a lot of skill sets that a good business owner is going to have, but nobody is good at everything. And so you can always hire those things out when the time comes. Like, for instance, I have a sales team right now. I did all the selling, though, when I first started myself. I took the consultations. I still take consultations almost every day, but I have a sales team that handles that for the most part for me now. There are people that are great at that. There are people that are great at writing proposals. There are people that are great at accounting and the numbers. You're not going to be great at everything. But you can slowly start bringing people on as you build your business. Most important thing, get the business established, test your ideas, start bringing revenue in, build from there. All right. Any other questions today from anybody watching? We have a few people on here. Again, I just want to present what some of the options were starting a consulting business. Again, I have been doing this now since end of 2019, 2020. I started right in the beginning of COVID. Actually, COVID hit when I went full time on our consulting business. And obviously now we do training and a few other things. And you'll have opportunities that are presented to you as you run a business, especially with the consulting piece. Again, for those of you that want to learn more, you can head on over to GovClose.com, check out our website, check out, you can talk to our sales team, get an overview of the process. You could also, and this is something that you may want to consider, is looking at some of the additional things that we provide our students in there to help them. So they receive our CRM, GovClose CRM for selling to the government. They can use that and bring on clients. For some of our students, we will help build their website. So it's actually pretty easy. But when you start talking about bringing inbound leads, setting up your funnels and all of that, we have all that set up, and anyone that wants it, once they're in the program, they just need to reach out to me. And I know a few of you are on here now that are in the program. So yeah, if you want to, Brett, no, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, you guys can always reach out to me with any questions. Check out the YouTube channel for our upcoming videos. We'll have a new one here this Friday. And that's going to be it for today, guys. Take care.
The GovClose certification is generating tremendous results.
So 27 years old, you've never worked in government contracting, you've never worked as a consultant, and you just closed your first deal, is that correct?
That's correct. And I've got a couple small projects on the side as well, so definitely probably my best investment I've made all year.
It would be my second post on how a cold call landed a 9-figure government contract. My name's Gavin Tice.
So my name is Ethan Mart. When I was able to enroll into the GovClose program, it just exceeded all my expectations. It really has provided a lot of valuable learnings and insights that I would not have found on my own.
I was able to get a consulting gig with a software company that currently works with the intelligence community. Hi, I'm Deb Diller Harris.
If you want to learn how to sell to the government, if you want to learn how to start your own consulting business, if you want to learn the skills that you need to go land a 6-figure plus account executive job with big companies selling to the government, the certification program is for you. Head on over to govclose.com, check out our certification program, talk to the team. You won't regret it. The GovClose certification is generating tremendous results.
So 27 years old, you've never worked in government contracting, you've never worked as a consultant, and you just closed your first deal, is that correct?
That's fair. And I've got a couple small projects on the side as well. So definitely probably my best investment I've made all year.
It would be my second post on how a cold call landed a 9-figure government contract. My name's Gavin Tice.
So my name is Ethan Mart. When I was able to enroll into the GovClose program, it just exceeded all my expectations and really has provided a lot of valuable learnings and insights that I would not have found on my own.
I was able to get a consulting gig with a software company that currently works with the intelligence community. Hi, I'm Deb Diller Harris.
If you want to learn how to sell to the government, if you want to learn how to start your own consulting business, if you want to learn the skills that you need to go land a 6-figure plus account executive job with big companies selling to the government, the certification program is for you. Head on over to govclose.com, check out our certification program, talk to the team. You won't regret it.